The longer a story goes on, there's something almost inevitable that happens, and that is that the states, challenges, and foes just keep growing in power and importance. And there are reasons for this, but one of the most important questions to ask about this is how will our heroes or characters rise to that challenge? And so the question I want to kind of talk about today is when is it time to power up a character? And basically, to kind of set it up, in gaming terms, we can basically say that power creep has happened. The content is harder, and where the character was now is not really that good compared to what they have to do. And so I'll be using gaming terms and also merchandising terms in this video because they kind of correlate with this. Because in a way, this is powering up a character and powering up the states and so forth is all about attention, really. How do you keep the audience focused in? Basically, keep them asking, how will they get out of this one? Or just enjoying the spectacle. And the thing is, you kind of have to keep that balance because it's like once you have this world threatening threat or whatever, world ending threat, I should say, it's like, can you really do lower states after that? It's just something to think about because you have that rising scale of escalation. Is that how do you deal back to normal once you've had the heroes who've stopped something that could destroy the world? So it's just something to think about and why you probably want to be a bit more careful with powering up characters than some people might be. And that's probably a good way to start off the kind of bad times of upgrading a character. And the first is basically giving the character one of those secret abilities. And the thing is, it's kind of okay to have secret abilities as long as you foreshadow them and you don't go overboard. And then basically showing them doing a bit of training with something or hinting that they're able to do something. Maybe they're working on a piece of equipment in the background. That's okay, and it gives a payoff when suddenly they're able to surprise everyone with, oh, with what they to do, and the audience seemed to like, yeah, I remember them doing something like that. So that's what it was all about. And the thing is with that whole secret ability thing is that sometimes it's been used to basically as a did out of jail free card, and you just, I don't know how this character is going to get out of it using their turn abilities, but I have this perfect solution right here. And the thing with that is that it can feel kind of fake. And I know there are stories that did it, but sometimes those are classical stories from another age, and people have probably a bit higher demands nowadays. But the thing is, you don't want to overdo it. You can't have them solve everything, and you should probably try and figure out ways that they can get out of their situation with their current abilities, maybe by applying them in new ways rather than just coming up with a new one to add to the pile. But again, it's kind of like having that narrative payoff. So you want to make sure that is there for the power up. The other one that's kind of a bad one, I would say, is the bid I win button. Where that's basically a character has a technique or something where they can basically do it and there are no drawbacks and thus no tension added to the story. And we can probably say that tension equals the tension in a way because you want to have that bit of drama there. So if a character has a move to finish the fight, you want to have it either be a risk for them to use or they want to use it at last resort. Like they don't really like going out on someone, but they will if they have to. So they're trying every way to prevent having to do that. So you have a character's moral compass being the kind of drawback, or you can have where it's, hey, I'll expend all my energy, so if this misses, and that's another way to do it, is that the move to miss, and maybe there's a charging time, so you either have to wait out the charging time, or maybe it will just leave you a sitting dud. So you have to think about that with those kind of instant win condition moves, and that what is the drawback to this character to use it? Otherwise, why wouldn't they be using it all the time? And so that's just something to think about as the story goes on. Anyway, the other thing to think about is kind of other upgrades are the side raids. And those are basically, you can think of them as a way where you don't really want to up that power scale too much. Like you don't want to just have them go to the world any threat, because you want to have them able to just keep protecting the city until you work your way up to that, so that you can keep it there and maybe bring it back down, because they solved it cleverly. So the character's power scale is fine, but you still want to have like the merchandise or so forth, or you want to give them a bit of different options on what to do. So you can add in like mission specific outfits, like give them a spacesuit for going to space, give them an Arctic suit for missions in snow and so forth, give them a stealth suit, and whatever other suits you can think of to kind of fit a mission in hand. And this is probably part of the reason why Batman and Iron Man can basically have their full toy line composed just of themselves. And the thing with this is that it does kind of promote kind of that thing of merchandising. So it can be a really interesting thing to think about it, and you probably want to kind of balance it in that, is this just going to be a one-off, or are they going to actually get more use out of it, or what's going to happen there? So I would say make sure they're going to get multiple uses out of it rather than it just being a one-off. Otherwise, then it does reek of merchandising. But it's just something to kind of consider. And then when we go into the gaming, we can also have basically different variations of the character where, hey, maybe they were the healer, but now they have an attacker or a DPS form as well for different circumstances. Or maybe they have a new element so they can go into new teams or fight new enemies. And so it's kind of things like that that can make it so that, oh, there's still value in this character or where their base was, but now there's new options for them to do. And the other thing to kind of really think about is on when it might be time to actually really power up a character is the relevancy on the power scale. And now this can just mean, oh, they'll train some more, or we'll edit a few numbers so that they're back in with the majority of the group. But we can also view it as what's their position in the meta. And meta in the gaming world generally stands for most effective tool available. And that basically means what would be your first choice to accomplish a task. And now generally that can be a specialist, but also a jack of all trades who can fit multiple roles and basically be the one who you can call on for most different roles. Can also be a pretty high pit, because then you don't necessarily have to get the best of the job. You can have someone who is good at most of the jobs. And that can try to be an interesting narrative piece, whereas you have the specialist who may be working on this, but you also have the jack of all trades who can sub in at this current event going on over there. And that's kind of the thing is, when would a character be relevant to this situation? Is this going to be like a Super Friends thing where you have to keep placing things around the aquarium or in the water so that Ultraman is relevant? And that's kind of the thing to really think about narratively, is that when is the character going to have the chance to shine? Is it going to be once in a blue moon? Is it going to be never? Or are we going to have them rigidly being part of the task? And then finally, there's kind of that thing of that it is time to upgrade the character for whatever reason. Maybe the power scaling has gone out of whack, so everyone's at a whole new level. So it's time for the character to basically get a new threads, greater power, or whatever, to face the new challenges coming. And the thing is, narratively, you want to make sure this is earned either by their time, how they spent their time, or they've been training, or maybe they've just faced their darkest hour, so now they've called upon a potential, or they've cultivated it to reach it. And that's the thing is, you want to have a struggle to get it. You don't want to just have it almost handed to them. I mean, sometimes you can if you've been training them enough, or at least shown that they're actually doing something. But it's the difference between being just handed everything and earning it, because earning it generally has a negative payoff. And that's kind of the thing to think about with a story, is that you don't just want to have, oh, this character gets all the good stuff. That kind of falls flat at some point, especially when it's just a consecutive upgrade that replaces everything that came before it. And this kind of brings to a point in that sometimes the big shiny super mode or whatever it is just really a splash of dull paint on the old mold. There isn't anything really new about it. It's just spectacle. That's the kind of thing that you need to think about is when you kind of remove that from the narrative, is that really all there is? Is it just another thing of merchandising? Like you have to get the new shiny thing when the old one is literally the same? And it's kind of the thing to really think about is that when is it just a push for an excuse or so forth, or can we make it more than that? Anyway, this is my perspective, and I think it's kind of a worthwhile thing to kind of discuss things in terms of merchandising and gaming and so forth, because not all stories exist in a vacuum of it just being the story, it just being on TV. Thinking about the merchandising and other things can give us a bit of relevancy to potentially making things that earn us a bit more of a way to make a living. At least this is then my perspective on it. So feel free to share your perspective on it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and share it so that others may enjoy it as well. And if you like watching our content, please subscribe to the channel so that you can see more of these when they go live. Anyway, I'm Jonah, and you've been watching Lionsmade Media, where we celebrate stories and the lessons you learn from them. Talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.